ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this latest teaching session on the course on technology and the future of medicine. Today, the main presentation is by Dr. Earle Waugh. I just have a few announcements, rather happy ones, to tell you about. I believe probably none of you before today have heard of Dr. Bertalan Mesko, M-E-S-K-O, from Hungary. But he is a 29-year-old MD, PhD, who is running a course comparable to this one starting in February 2014. And you can read more about him at the medicalfuturist.com. Here's a picture of him. So he was born in 1984. And so he's quite comparable to many of you in age, and he's been teaching in this area of social media and medicine and technology in medicine for 6 years, which must mean that he was teaching during his medical school years, and that he's been teaching in this area since the age of 23. So I think most of you are somewhere in that age range, 23 to 29. And I expect in the course of the next year or so that we'll have quite a lot of contact both with him and with students taking his course. He has suggested that we find ways to have interactions between the students in this course and in his course. So once again, that's the medicalfuturist.com to find out more about him. And on that page, you'll find this CV for him. So you can get a lot of details here. And I think this is quite an exciting and unexpected development. He came across the paper that we've recently published about the course, and so that's how he came to contact me. So up until that contact, I would have said this course is unique in all the world and there is no similar course. But when his course on disruptive technologies and medicine starts up in February, there will be 2 courses that are somewhat similar then. Now also recently, I've sent you an email. Let's see if I can figure out how to, okay. It's over here, yes. Okay, so I just wanted to be sure that you all know about the things that are in this email. It's not that I don't think you read your email, but I just want to be absolutely sure that you know everything that's here. So today's lecture, Medical Ethics of the Future, what will we allow when everything is possible? Now on the 12th, you do not have to come. It is, I think, officially a holiday. But I also have to tell you the best lecture Abdullah Salah ever gave was on a similar university holiday. And Angus will be here, and I will be here, and some of you have already said that you'll be here. The video will be awesome, so if you feel that you don't want to come because it says in the university calendar that you're supposed to be off that day, that's perfectly fine. But Abdullah was born in Iraq. He and the rest of his family came very close to dying at the hands of Saddam Hussein in getting out. And once he got out, he had this strong humanitarian drive, and he started this ceramic water filter project. You know, a lot of people plan projects to help people in the third world, but often it's kind of top down, like it's a little bit, you know, insulting to them that you're providing them with technology they can't possibly create locally, making them, you know, dependent on it. He's done something entirely different from that, where you create a local industry. You have the people there producing the ceramic water filters themselves, making money on it. It all sort of works locally, and so you're saving lives by providing cleaner water in a way that also works in terms of the local economy. A couple of years ago, when the royal couple visited, Premier Stelmach wanted to find one scientist at the university for the royal couple to meet, and Abdullah Salah was that scientist, and he can tell you about how and why. He shares certain interests with the royal couple, but it was kind of cool. So he is a resident in surgery, and the call schedule is such that November the 12th is the only date he could possibly lecture here. So I'm sorry that I've caused this to happen on a day that's supposed to be a university holiday. But anyway, that's the deal on the 12th. On the 14th, Heather Graves is talking about writing as technology. We're very proud to have her from the Department of English and Film Studies teaching in this course. When she first taught in this course, she thought it was some sort of crazy accident that she was here and that we'd never ask her back, but we have asked her back. The intention is to have either her or the Dean of Arts or both of them teaching in every single term. And she gives quite an interesting lecture. Jeffrey Rockwell, who's teaching on the 19th, is in charge of humanities computing. And he has some kind of alternative views on many of the things that we talk about here. He also has a conflicting meeting at 3. So that is the reason that there's a potential window on the 19th for a student presentation. It doesn't have to happen, but because he has to leave at 2:45, there could be a student presentation on that day between 3 and 3:20 if we wished to. Okay, and then on the 21st, Bibiana Kujak, who originally was with Earle Waugh, one of the official skeptics in the course. That's the reason she was recruited, is that she is not a very high-tech person. She goes for long periods without consulting a cell phone, or maybe even, God forbid, walking around without one. And so anyway, and she's part of the project that I lead of building a new medical school in Nepal. She'll tell you about the singularity and the have-nots. Julie Lin Wong will be back on the 26th. This time it'll be a workshop format, and she intends to write a paper with you about what goes on that day. So she's going to teach you how to blog. You're going to actually create some stuff which will be possible to publish in a paper, she hopes. And she will then, collaborate with you on this paper, and that's the plan for the 26th. So it'll be somewhat similar to her talk on the 29th, but it's kind of the practical extension of it in a workshop form. On the 28th, there are two things happening on the 28th. There is this, and on the 26th, we also will have either 2 or 3 presentations. We'll have presentations at 3:30 and 4 of 2 students, and we may also have a presentation at 4:30. And on the 28th, Dr. Rene is talking about the promise and perils of biotech. There will never be a published video of this particular lecture, even though we capture it, because of the bioterrorism potential. It would be like teaching people how to kill people using anthrax spores and other things. So it's a very interesting lecture, and you have to be here to witness it. You cannot experience it remotely. It will not be on YouTube. Also, in the evening of the 28th, I'm speaking at Nerd Night, and I do have some extra tickets if some of you wish to go, and if you don't wish to purchase your own tickets, you do have to register on the site, and some people believe this is kind of an invasion of privacy to be forced to register. So if you hold that belief and would like me to provide you with the tickets, that is also possible. But you have to let me know because I don't have unlimited tickets. And finally, on the 3rd, we now know where we will be. We'll be in Edmonton Clinic Health Academy, 1498. It's very, very important to me that the people presenting on that day be able to find the room and show up and so on. So if you have any difficulty, please let me know. I want to make sure that every single student in the course who's supposed to give a presentation in the course does do so. And if you go missing, you know that's a uniquely Canadian phrase, going missing. Other cultures don't use this. They have no idea what that means, but all of you know what that means. So if you go missing and can't find the room, then you won't get a grade for your presentation and everything will be wrecked. So please let me know if you have any conflict that evening or if you need me to tell you more about how to find the room. It should be fun what we do in that room. This is the schedule: pizza and soft drinks, musical set, Rich Sutton presentation. He's an AI lecturer who teaches a course exactly the same time as this course. So he's been unable to teach us during the regular scheduled time. Musical set, and then student presentations by all of you who have not previously presented. And then the last half hour, I always believed that there'll nobody be there for the last half hour, but the last time we did this, everybody stayed, and there was this like fervent discussion of the future of the course and what the students thought we should do in the course and all that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. We have the room until 10. I've not confirmed with the musician yet. I don't think I'll have difficulty finding one, but I have not confirmed that part of it. So any questions about this? Any angst, any difficulties with anything about what I've just presented to you? Yes? Your mentors? No. The role of the mentor, first of all, I hope on the 3rd that we have a lot of visitors, including former students in the course. We usually do. It's sort of fun for them to see what you guys are doing and to kind of, reminisce about what it was like when they took the course. But no, your mentor, there's no required work on the part of the mentor. It's whatever you work out with that person, and they don't have to be there. But it's perfectly fine if they are. On the 26th, Julie Lynn Wong will be here, so she'll be listening to the presentations along with me, and there may be other faculty. Earle Waugh will be here on the 3rd, so, and as I say, there may be lots of other people. Other questions about anything procedural? Okay. I often talk about the still pictures taken by this camera. Last time, for Jonathan Schaefer's lecture, for the first time ever, there were no still pictures. I think that had to do with two things. First of all, that the lecturer didn't smile very much, but also that where the camera was placed, we couldn't actually get a clear shot of any of you asking questions. So I've asked Raja, when that happens, to simply move the camera so that we don't ever again. I was so disappointed when we didn't have any pictures at all of you guys. Sometimes we end up with hundreds, but from Tuesday there were absolutely none. So anyway, we'll try not to have that to happen anymore.
So, how are you all? I see you're just treading on the edges of sleep. Is that the feedback I'm getting out here? I mean, why don't you take 5 minutes and get it out of your system, and then we'll go on with things, okay? So the last time I was here, I told you exactly where I'm coming from, okay? So I am the chief dissenter in this outfit. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you right up front that I am not one bit scared of robots at all, okay? Let me tell you what I think the real ethical issue is. Well, maybe there are two of them. But for me, the real ethical issue is not robots. For me, what the real ethical issue is whether or not we are going to be able to understand ourselves in a new kind of environment in such a way that we can shape good life. That is, human life to be better than it is now. So what I view the robots, and I view the computers, and I view all of that material in nothing other than an extension of the human development of industry and tool making. So these things I don't see as radically different in terms of human expression. So therefore, you see, I have a limitation in getting, upset about some of the things in singularity, i.e., that it's going to replace humans, and that, eventually we're going to have people running around with machine bodies, with some kind of brain sitting inside it and hooked up to the machine. No way, Jose. Besides, you see, I am really quite with it because I wore my rodeo shirt today. Now, I know some of you are really not into rodeos, but I think it's important that you keep yourself grounded, okay? So what is really important in Edmonton today is that the rodeo is on. And you guys have decided that you're going to give up the rodeo to come here and listen to this lecture on ethics. Well, good on you. That's what I say, good on you. So what I want to do is to run through some of the ethical issues. And I think what really scares me about computers and about a lot of the talk that goes on in this area is what it will do with human ingenuity. You know what? Machines don't scare me. It's whether or not we get lazy and let the machines to run things. That's what scares me. Now you might say, well, you're white on top and you're old and you're probably Alzheimer's is well on the way and all that. Okay, maybe it is, but look, I'll tell you what. My colleague the other day said, my daughter bought new shoes. Brand new, nice leather shoes, okay? And she was out in the driveway, and there was a little bit of water spilt on her shoes, and it marked the shoes. I mean, this is not heartache country, but okay, there was water on the shoes. So her daughter came in and she said, Mom, these shoes will have to be polished. So her mother says, well, polish them. Well, you know how old this girl was? It's a good job you're sitting down, because she was 23. So I said to my colleague, after she was recalling this to me, I said to my colleague, so we're going to be guilty because this generation can't get off its duff to polish its own shoes. She said, well, I guess I never taught her how to polish her shoes. I said, well, how did you learn how to polish the shoes? She said, I'm from a Ukrainian family, and every Saturday night, my father would line up all of our shoes right across the kitchen floor, and he would sit down Saturday night and he'd polish everybody's shoes, okay? So all I had to do was watch what he did. And I could see that when it was wet outside, he put dubbin on it. You know about dubbin? Anybody here know about dubbin? Oh my God, we're in trouble. You're living in Edmonton, gang. You'd have to know about dubbin. All right. So she says, her daughter said, I don't know how to do this because you saw your father polishing shoes. I've never seen you polishing shoes. So I thought, well, I guess that's it, you know. She never showed her how to polish shoes. And then I went in and I sat at my desk and I got mad. I said, what the hell is going on here? You mean to tell me that a 23-year-old can't figure out how to put polish on shoes? Where's the ingenuity in this? You understand where I'm going with this? The problem with machines is that we can get so used to them doing things for us that we give up on the whole issue of ingenuity and personal achievement. What worries me most about iPhones and the iPhone generation we have is precisely from the fact that people are so connected to it and so dependent upon it. My God, if the electricity goes down, we're in big trouble. So, from an ethical point of view then, what worries me most is not the robot, nor, frankly, is it the supercomputer that can think way far beyond what humans can do. What really worries me is the ability and the impression of an imagination, and the ability of humans to themselves move in another direction. I think probably and then I'll get on with what I have to say. I think probably what's really important for you guys to think about is that there may be, 5,000 to 10,000 planets in our galaxy that have the potential to have some kind of life on them. Okay? We may not be the only life form in this galaxy, and probably are not, and probably it's a matter of ego that says we are. And probably one of the reasons why we haven't been contacted by whoever these people are and the forms of life up there is precisely because we haven't been able to manage ourselves very well. We've still got so bloody many wars going on, and we're killing each other, and we've got guns in everybody's houses, and we're shooting people right, left, and center. I mean, if I were somebody out there and I saw what was going on here, I'd say, well, you know what? We'll give that a pass. So the real problem might be that we haven't developed morally and ethically enough to be able to handle the future. So yes, I think then that there is no possibility of robots outpacing human ingenuity and understanding, because it is in fact a tool of human development. So let me run quickly through this and then we can debate, okay? Now, there are all kinds of ethical issues that have come up from the development of robotic life, robotic activity. And one of them, of course, is that the robots are going to offset all these humans. I don't know how many of you have been to Detroit. Have you been to Detroit to see the automobile industry? No? Well, put it on your list before you're dead and gone, okay? Because it's really interesting to see the way they put a car together. But my point to you is that at one time, all of those cars were put together by humans. Now, you know, there are very few humans on the line, and they're all done by robots. Maybe that's why they're such tin Lizzies and they only last for 5 years, I don't know. But at any rate, that's the deal. It does disturb me, however, when I read that Foxconn International is going to eliminate all of these Chinese, you know, all of the Chinese workers. So 1.2 million workers are going to be, you know, kicked off the job because iPhones want to do it cheaper. That disturbs me. And of course, it does disturb me too about all of the issues that are going on about the NASA and the CIA and them looking in on my jokes that I send out on the internet. I think you, in your generation, are going to see something that my generation did not see, and that is what I would call the intrusive development of drones in your life. And you're going to see the drones playing an active role in what you can do and what you can't do. They already now have a role to play in surveying the borders of our countries, and this kind of thing is going to increase exponentially. And can you imagine what kind of situation it's going to be like when small countries pick up these drones and make them part and parcel of the lifestyle? I think this should be debated. Why? Because this is an ethical issue. It's an ethical issue whether or not I have a drone overhead that is taking a picture of me and I don't give permission for that. I think that's an ethical issue. At any rate, these drones now do all kinds of things that you're not aware of, including forest fire locations, etc., etc. Now, I don't need to spend much time on the amazing medical advances that have gone on, but there are a number that you should keep in mind. I think one of the things that really thrilled me most in the last few months is Ho and Fee, who made this crab robot that crawls into the stomach through the mouth and snips off cancers that are in the stomach. I think this is really an extraordinary use of robotics, and we can see all kinds of that thing coming down the pike again and more. So it's quite possible then that from a medical standpoint, we're going to see the exponential development of robots. And this, from my perspective, is a good thing. And we're going to see many of these kinds of things done, including organ modification and probably internal examination with robots. And I think this is great. When I was in Cleveland, I taught in Cleveland for a few years. And there was a guy over at Case Western who was in psychology, and he had tried to hook up the brain of a monkey to a machine. Yeah, I mean, this is back when? This is back in the 80s, in the 70s. So he had this box, this machine, with wheels on it and wires and whatnot, and so he cut the head off the monkey, right? And he hooked the monkey up to a machine and had the monkey alive, and its eyes were blinking and all that kind of stuff. And he was trying to get the monkey, to manipulate where it would go. So he tried to use the brain waves of the monkey to direct this little box that he had the head sitting on. Well, he wasn't able to do that, but I just read in an email that came across my computer this morning that somebody has now been able to rig up a system where an implant in a monkey's brain can send a message to an object or something outside the body and make that thing move. So in effect now, we've conquered that kind of problem. We've now been able to implant an electrode in the brain that can allow us to use brain waves and brain impulses to manipulate things outside us. So this is a very interesting kind of development. So here is the basic proposition, or at least the debate that's going on in the literature, okay? So if you want to summarize the debate that's going on, here's one. So even if a super robot were to control all medical systems in the future with unlimited possibilities to manipulate the human, so long as the word human applies, there must be the presumption of ethical awareness and available intentionality to express self meaningfully and some sense of legitimate human choice. If those things are not possible, if those things are truncated, if those things are removed, then, according to this, we are not dealing with humans any longer. So what's the debate say? Well, if you agree that ethical reasoning defines humans, then ethical evaluation will be present even in singularity. Okay? And this will obtain even if we accept we have no idea whether our current perception of moral concepts or principles will apply. We do not know whether what we think is ethical now will apply at singularity. There is absolutely no basis and no evidence that it will. Why? Because we don't know if the humans of that point will define ethical issues that way or the same way we do. So in effect, my argument is that it's impossible to tell on the basis of evidence now what the ethical field will be like then. It is a huge jump, and it's not a scientific jump. It is I guess, a belief jump. So, the perspective that I take on this is only if the current moral framework holds. Another aspect for this principle. Human decision-making appears to define both the construction of robots and the position they will occupy in society. All right, so the issue I have for you is, will you give up your freedom of choice and your freedom to make movements of will to a machine? Will you? How many of you will right now say that if I were to get a superior machine, I would give up control of that machine? I want to see your hands. How many of you will do that? So, maybe a fifth of you will, huh? So the issue for me is pretty clear. If you believe, if you hold then that humans will give up the control of machines, then you're buying into a kind of perception of reality that's quite beyond what we have at this moment in time. The way that humans define themselves and the way they express themselves is not to give up this kind of control. So what's the negative part of this argument? Well, I think probably some of you agree with this, and that is that singularity itself will change the very definition of the human. Okay, so that's one issue that we have to deal with. Secondly, the line is already blurring between the machine and the human, and there are many options as we have seen already. Now, another side to this is, of course, that current technology is already beyond most of us. I mean, I don't know exactly why the cell phone works. So, in effect there, for most of us, we don't understand many of these things anyway. And no human institution has control over machines or their development, at least this time. So, here's a map of the brain. Now, what we now know is that computers are based upon a singular kind of map, and that they don't work like the brain at all. For one thing, our brain does not necessarily have to go in one direction or another. And part of the way in which our brain works allows us to change our minds in the middle of a direction and go in an entirely different direction. And it's quite possible for us to reverse direction and go in an entirely other direction if we wish. So in effect then, morally, whether we could create a machine that would think like humans, there's no guarantee that the machine would in fact make the kinds of decisions that we could make, i.e. to reverse where we're going. So in effect, a brain wiring map doesn't tell us what we would do. There are a whole host of issues that we could discuss. I don't know how much time you want to put into a discussion like this, but even on the level of robots. What kind of machine should we develop? What kind of computer should we develop? Should we develop those that are sensitive to human values? Perhaps there are other kinds of computers on other worlds that are sensitive to different kinds of values. Does that make then the computers that we develop entirely human in some sense of that word? And another issue that has often come up, especially in ordinary discussions about this, is whether humans are going to accept their replacement. In other words, what parts of you will you allow to be replaced? And there are a host of ethical issues involved in that. Can we build a robot with interpersonal skills? Is it possible that we can build a computer with interpersonal skills? So at this point in time, what I see is the development of all of these aspects, whether they're robots or computers or whatever. I see them all as part of this technological development and expression of the original input of humans into the development of tools. I do not see a radical split with these machines and human expression at all. Now, I have to acknowledge a number of things. First of all, I acknowledge that ethical reasoning is a really contested area. And I can tell you from my experience over in family medicine that just about any area of medical procedure that you want to identify has ethical issues attached to it. I was interested to listen to the news this morning and to hear the case that's now discussed in Edmonton about the chap who is on the school board who tweeted some pretty vile stuff. Now, why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because we happen to think that public officials should not do this kind of stuff, right? We seem to think that that's what should be done. So what is this thinking should be done that's part of the way humans live together? What is that? And are we going to get rid of that? No, I think not. I think it is a contested area, but nevertheless, it's part and parcel of the way we express ourselves as human beings. So we'll walk through some of the futurism claims and some of the ethical issues that arises out of them, but I can tell you from my reading in this area, there is a host of ethical issues, and that just because futurism is de rigueur at the moment does not convince me that ethics will be abandoned at any time soon. And the last point I make under this is quite evidently, for me, ethics has arisen out of human consciousness with respect to religion. Now, it's quite true that ethics today can be quite independent of religious ideas, but the fact of the matter is that ethical thinking has walked in tandem with the evolution in religious ideas. So whether or not you argue that ethics comes out of religion, or whether you argue that ethics walks in tandem with religion, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the whole spectrum of the development of ethical theory, it has walked hand in glove with the development of religious awareness. While it may be true that at least 10 years ago we thought religion was on the wane. I remember when I was in graduate school at Chicago, we had several social scientists who came, who taught us classes like this, and they often said, you know what? Religion is finished. Nobody is going to pay any attention to religion in the future. Well, you can see I've lived a number of years, and it ain't gone yet. In fact, religion has moved from the back page to the front in the newspaper. So in effect then, I am not convinced on the basis of the evidence in my lifetime that religion is going anywhere away from where people live. And while it might not be the in thing to do in the university to admit that you've got any kind of spiritual or religious life, and while it was at one time the way to express your dissent from society, the fact of the matter is it still sits there. And it still has power. And if you don't believe me, just go to the southern states. So, let's unpack some of the issues, huh? Let's look at 3 or 4 of these studies, and let's explore some of the issues that they talk about. Have you read any of Horner's stuff? Anybody read Horner? Oh, we've got one guy read Horner. Great. Okay. So from Horner's perspective, nanomedicine is really not just the amelioration of medical treatment, but it is an improvement of human performance. So in effect then, we're not trying to just replace a defective heart. We're going to try to improve hearts to the point where they will perhaps be better than the original. If the outcomes are beyond our knowledge and control, then we can't be held responsible for them. But as a central plank of moral theory, that moral agency and judgment must be immune to luck. Therefore, according to Horner, we need nano-ethics. In other words, if one of you wants a career in this business, then what you have to take up is nano-ethics. You have to write the use of ethics at the nano level, because there is one, from Horner's perspective, where ethics is going. All right, let's look through Kurzweil. You all know about this chap. He's the Bible. Human life will be irreversibly transformed, although neither utopian nor dystopian, this epic will transform the concepts that we rely on to give meaning to our lives, from our business models to the cycle of human life, including death itself. Well, you know what? This sounds like Old Testament prophecy stuff to me. The fact of the matter is that the perception of what it is that is human, at least for a good part of human life, has understood death to be a kind of finality. But the fact of the matter is that death is so unusual and so beyond us that we really can't grasp its meaning. Oh, we can look in the mirror in the morning and we can see we've got, maybe one gray hair and then two gray hairs, and then we get a few wrinkles around the eyes, and then things start to droop and all that kind of stuff. So we do see what we would call the gradual decay of the body. But the fact of the matter is that until we can reverse human decay and human movement into death, I don't see how we change the understanding of human life at all. There will be no distinction post-singularity between human and machine, or between physical and virtual reality. Now, obviously, Kurzweil sees has a vision in the future, and I can see where in the future it will be totally unnecessary for you to sit in a classroom like this. I can see perhaps not very many years down the line where we would have a course like this, plugged into a little sensor that will be plugged into your brain, and that within a few minutes you could listen it would be fed into your brain, and you wouldn't need to come here and sit in this class and listen to me, yammer on. It's quite possible then that the university as we know it, will go the way of the dodo bird. But that doesn't mean to me that it changes the whole notion of humans, and they're coming into existence and they're having some sense of destiny as a living entity, and the creativity that forms the basic part of human life. And then that moment comes when you know that it's time for you to stop, that there will be no more you. This is life. This is life as we know it. So until we can change that definition of life, I don't see that the ethics are going to change that much. So Kurzweil obviously thinks that that's possible. 6 historical ethics that are driven in a law-like manner by the exponential growth of information and technology. The theory of technological evolution is justification of the shape of a future human society. And my reading of evolution is that it's not straightforward and unilingual, and it doesn't go in one direction. So, therefore, while I think you see that I disagree somewhat with Mr. Kurzweil. All right, let's talk about William Joy. Genetic engineering, robotics, and nanotechnology will extinguish human beings as we now know them. So he goes back to Hans Moravec. Biological species almost never survive encounters with superior competitors. Now, ethically, what doesn't scare me, as I told you at the beginning, is not machines, or even our ability to handle machines that will transform parts of our body. What scares me is that we may well come in contact with superior beings from another planet. And that superior beings from another planet may find us so pedestrian and so perverse that they won't want to have anything to do with us. So the ethical issue for me is biological species almost never survive encounters with superior competitors has nothing to do with machines. It has to do with the potential of what's out in our own galaxy and the potential of developing in a way that will relate to that. I guess not welcome in the future is a very interesting idea. Self-replication amplifies the danger of GNR. A bomb is blown up only once, but one bot can develop many and quickly get out of control. So the real problem is then, are we able to control those issues that this kind of computing power will provide to the world. So from this perspective, it seems far more likely that a robotic existence would not be like a human one in any sense that we understand, and that the robots would in no sense be our children, that on this path our humanity may well be lost. Let's look at Richard Mason as I wrap up. Richard Mason says that the fundamental assumption that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. And these are called symbolic or symbol processing AI. Now, we have had in this class people to talk about this, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. It is now obviously a matter of doctrine that AI-based systems will be the next kind of evolutionary development. There are, for me, certain issues with that, and I think Richard Mason has covered them, and so I will go on quickly. So here's some of the bottom line for me. I see nothing wrong and I see no ethical problem with a widespread embrace of technology by humans, because I think it is by humans and with humans and for humans. We have in place no guidelines for developing entities more intelligent than ourselves, and we have no guidelines for understanding what those kinds of beings may well be and their relationship to us. If they are created by us, then I believe they will be based on the kind of intelligence that we have. If they are beyond us, then I don't know how we would relate to them. Now, there are always those who argue that this kind of dramatic change is going to pose destruction of some sort or other. I mean, I've lived fairly long, and I see that there's not much hope of the humans getting beyond its own self-destruction. I mean, we seem to have not come very far in terms of developing ways to handle all of our problems. If anything is to be destroyed, it will be humans that will do it. It will not be machines. And it probably will come out of the fact that we have not been able to handle many of the kinds of problems that we have. And I guess, can there be a higher ethics? Maybe so, but it's not evident at this point. So here's my solution for you. Here's a new high-tech exercise robot for you. Use it when all else fails. Okay.
So are there questions? There must be.
Why do you think it was unethical for Foxconn to lay off all those Chinese workers? From my point of view, I thought it would be more about efficiency when they laid them off, because just having an assembly line, I mean, it's unfortunate that they did lose their jobs. So I can see how it would hurt the economy, but ethics-wise, I don't see how it's wrong to replace workers with an assembly line for something as standard as producing or mass production of, say, like cell phones, in which they're all the same, and really human input won't really matter on how the iPhone turns out on the assembly line level anyways. I guess what I'm asking is, why is it unethical?
So you don't see an ethical problem in replacing humans with machines on a robot line for telephone?
I see an economic issue. I mean, you're obviously losing a lot of jobs.
So, but is the economic issue the only one that's significant? And it's still an ethical issue, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also more efficient if you're lowering your costs. Also, it's better for safety.
Am I missing something here? I mean, you've got 1.2 million
Yeah.
fellows that live around the corner from you, and they're going to be out of a job. And that doesn't mean anything to you?
It does, but it's a natural
What does it mean
process.
to
It's a
you,
natural
sir?
process. It's no different
Huh?
than using computers in the workplace. It's no different than using computers in the workplace. Right? I mean, I understand, but I mean, using machines
What
in the
do you understand, sir? What do you understand when you replace 1.2 million people without a job, without skills, and you
Yeah.
turn them out? What do you do, sir?
Well, I was just speaking from the business perspective. It just seems like it's a logical choice, right? It's faster at the same time. I mean, it's unfortunate that they're losing their jobs, I agree, but I mean, they did the same thing in like multiple businesses and industries.
Well, I appreciate the fact that there are many different human views and they're all ethical in some way, shape, or form.
Done? So I may answer a little bit for the previous questions because I'm from that country. So for the job, one of the although the job is for you to live, but also is for the stability for the whole society. If the people have no job, they will become crazy. And right now in China, we want to make sure 7% increasing of the GDP. Why do we do that? Because we have some million new students graduate from university and they need a job. If we want to make sure all of them can get a job, we must need 7% GDP increasing. That's why we do that. And in this case, if one robot, for sure, that's robot. They have high level skill than you, and they replace you, and you will feel, oh, it's just like he's not person, and he has high skill because of high level skill because of his machine, and he replaced me. What the hell is that? And I was beat by a machine. So people may feel unequally treatment, and they also feel, they lost their job and they become crazy. The whole society won't be stable anymore.
I just had a question about how you said we won't be able to predict in the future what morally and ethically humans will be thinking and how we would have evolved or devolved by then. Is that what you were saying earlier, just to clarify?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Sorry,
hear.
did you?
Just a minute, I'll have to come closer. My hearing aid has gone down. No, I'm sorry, what is it you said?
You just said that we haven't developed like morally or ethically enough to embrace the future, in the sense that we don't know what our morals and ethics will be then. Would you say it's a fair statement to say that if we look at human evolution, we've become, at least socially, our norms have been more increasing in higher ethical quality? We've been more open and more like tolerant, like we've more accepting, more kind to each other, would you say, over the last, like, I'm not saying that we still don't do bad things, but socially as a norm?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, the way I view human evolution when it comes to ethics is that you don't see a kind of step-by-step development, right? Like in one part of the world, you'll see what I would call advanced ethical awareness. For example, apart from a few countries in the world, we're not building huge hydrogen bombs anymore. I mean, sure, we've got stockpiles of them in the United States and in Israel, but we're not building huge stockpiles of these things. And I mean, for me, it's laughable to go on about Iran trying to get atomic bombs, because we've got enough in the world now that we could wipe out all human population. I mean, so for me, what is really significant is that we've stopped that mania. right? We no longer do that stupid kind of thing. So yes, that's a progress. But on other levels, you know, we know right now that the real problems that we face, many of those real problems have to do with poverty, right? With trying to give people who don't have even a subsistence of living, to try to lift them up a little bit so that they can produce something for the better good of all society. We know that that's true. We've got ample studies, thousands of studies that prove that. But can we translate that into political will? Can we do it in Alberta? Oh, God. You can't do it in Alberta. So the point that I'm bringing to you is that on some levels we are certainly aware of what we have to do to improve the living of people and the ethical involvement of argument in that. But at another level, we are, you know, we just don't have the guts to do it. We just don't want to, you know, rest the machine around and deal with those things. Secondly, I think we have made huge steps in treating women properly. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we've conquered all of the problems with regard to what women have to put up with in the world. But I do think, first of all, at the medical level, women have an equality at the medical level that they never had 50 years ago. So that now we have dedicated medical systems for women. And we can see how much impact that has on society, especially in the West. I think you can argue that the way we have put emphasis on women's health has proven itself on how long old geezers like me are around, right? It is a part of a kind of collective development that has gone on. That is an improvement. So, you know, if we could bring all of the societies in the world up to the point where we can say, look, let's do things for women and let's help girls get ahead. If we did that, we would see health rising in the most remote part of the world. That's what I think would happen. We haven't done that, but I think that's at least a step ahead in some areas. So I could mention 2 or 3 others that I think we've gone ahead. On other things, I think we've gone back. I look with trepidation at the expanse of guns in the United States, and in Chicago alone, I think there was 875 people killed last year with guns alone. I mean, my God, this is madness. This is wiping out a whole village in one city. I find this to be revolting. And the loss of the Republicans in the United States of the last election, and the whole southern states has gone out now, and just about every person in the southern states owns a gun. I mean, I can only see that as, you know, going down, man. This is going down big time. So if you're asking me about my overall vision of what I see humans doing, yeah, we've made some progress in some areas, but, you know, in some other areas, we've lost our way.
So, going back to Foxconn.
Yeah.
The loss of 1.2 million it's a significant number. But the kinds
it's bigger
of
than
jobs,
Edmonton.
It is.
Yeah.
But the kinds of jobs that are being replaced are not creative jobs. These are jobs where people were committing suicide.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's part of a cycle that we've seen before when we did the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
How do you think that we should be doing this better? for more ethically.
Have we learned anything from the Industrial Revolution?
Indeed we have, because we don't
What
have
have we
children
learned?
making our little iPhones right
Yeah,
now.
okay. I mean, come on now. I'm talking about, you know, in human and collective achievement. What have we learned? From the Industrial Revolution, we learned, and out of that came the unions, and out of it came the notion that humans must have a certain kind of dignity built into their work. And if you build dignity into work, you'll get people to sweep the floor and to put, you know, itty-bitty things together. Sure. But my point is, if you suddenly pull the rug out from underneath them without any kind of help to assist them to move on themselves, I think this is outrageous. And had I known it before I bought my iPhone, I would not have bought an iPhone.
So it's the way they were laid off rather than being laid off.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Okay? So have we learned anything about how to treat our fellow human beings from this? I mean, we should have learned from the Industrial Revolution that you just can't do this kind of thing to people. And I mean, I've been in China. I've seen the way many of these people who work in these factories, you know, how they live. You know, $1 a day feeds them. I mean, really. And then to say, I'm sorry, buddy, but this machine is replacing you. I mean, I know that the jobs that they were replaced were just, you know, god-awful. I wouldn't want to do it. But then I have many opportunities to do other kinds of things I don't see that they have. That's my concern. Okay? So rebut me.
It's not so much a rebuttal to what you're saying, but something would probably be more on your side a little bit, but just something that I thought we could touch on is not necessarily that in favor of technology, like these 1.2 million jobs, there's more money to be made. I think it's distribution of wealth that needs to come into consideration a bit more.
I'm willing to accept that argument.
And in those terms, the 1.2 million people being laid off kind of goes towards the more, you know, the disparity and the gap between the rich and poor. But I think that, you know, the amount of money to be made is negligible in the sense of technology versus 1.2 million workers in that sense.
Yeah.
If society values the collective better than they would do the gross amount of money. But I don't know if that's...
Yeah, well, you see, I see this as a pattern in so many areas. For example, you guys now are going to go out into society and you're going to be the middle class, huh? Well, maybe a few of you will be, you know, in the upper 3% of society that will be millionaires and billionaires, okay? You're in trouble. The middle class is in trouble. In the United States and Canada, the middle class is in trouble. It is shrinking. The amount of money that the middle class has to spend is shrinking. The potential for jobs for you guys is shrinking. And I think we have abandoned a principle of collective concern and care. And once you abandon that notion of collective concern and care, you're going to have 2% at the top that are billionaires, can run around the world in, you know, supersonic jets, and the rest of us basically scrounge for a living. I don't like the picture that I'm seeing for your generation. How are you going to raise your kids? Where are you going to live? Have you talked to the people that are 30-something and find out what they tried to do to find a house and what it will cost them? So, yeah, my concern is for you guys. I mean, all guys like me are dead, okay? But the whole point is that this is another generation has come up, and the gap between those who are rich and those who just barely get by is growing and growing and growing. And I honestly fear for you. I fear for my daughter. I fear for my kids. And I certainly have no idea how my grandchildren are going to make it. Now, maybe this is just old man's jitters. I don't know. But I can tell you that what I see coming down the pike is not nice. And that's an ethical issue. That's a use of resources. And Foxconn, for me, is an example of this kind of high-handed, we get rich regardless of what happens to the people. I can't buy it. Sorry. With all due respect, sir.
Yeah, I was also going to talk about this Foxconn thing, but I also wanted to tie it into some of the other stuff you were talking about. So basically, from what I took from this is you're saying that no matter what, no matter how many advances we make, we're still essentially human. You can't take that figure, you can't take that out of the picture.
That's right.
And so in terms of this Foxconn stuff and replacing workers, I think you could say the same thing in terms of, I guess, capitalist ideals. It seems like pretty much everybody everywhere in the world has embraced the sort of free market. It's all about, the bottom line and searching for a profit. And so I guess the reason why it seems like workers are being replaced in different parts of the world is just for that bottom line. So I think much the same way that you might say, hey, you can't take humans out of the singularity. Can you really remove the drive for making the most money you can, providing the most for your shareholders out of business? It really does, I guess, tie into the whole idea of efficiency.
I understand your argument. I really don't disagree with your argument. My issue is, do we have to step back as humans and reevaluate the way in which we distribute goods and services and the way in which we apply a capitalist model? I don't have anything, overall, I don't have huge debates with the capitalist model. I think it's done a marvelous service to an awful lot of people and a certain generation, maybe 100 years. That capitalist model has transformed the lives of an awful lot of people. My problem is now we are in a global society where the evils of that model can come down, right? Now we know that the capitalist thing was traded on colonialism, right? And the subjection of people to a capitalist model in Europe. And we know the costs of that in terms of what it did to China and India and the Middle East and so many other places. So, what have we learned? What have we learned in terms of our collective understanding of how we can shape a society that's going to help as many people as we can?
Yeah, I think Louis C.K. had a bit about that in his latest stand-up, and his whole deal was again with these iPods, and he was saying that the whole reason why I have this is because of the enslavement almost of a massive amount of people in some other part of the world, and that every single step in human evolution is always come at the cost of suppressing or subjugating another person.
Yeah. Well, I think Kim wants to get me out of here, so
No.
I'll have to say au revoir to you guys.
No, I just want to make a remark myself, which is that we don't know that money will always be used, that in Star Trek, the fictional world, it isn't clear that there is money. There are still valuable natural resources there, so maybe there's something like that. You can think of a number of scenarios where there'd be guaranteed income for everybody and that most people wouldn't have to work. We've talked about that a lot. So the idea that there's no way to fix this because everybody's going to be motivated by profit, there are some possible scenarios for the future where that isn't so. Yeah. Of course, we don't know how that would work. We don't know that it would work. I visited a society like that in India where they don't use money, and it's not a perfect society. But right after I left, there was a very brutal murder among that society. So it at least proved to me that there's still some people with evil.
So what was your influence there?
No, I didn't have anything to do with the murder.
Maybe we should point some fingers here.
No. It was just a brief visit. It's called Auberville. It's beautiful scenery and kind of, it looks like the most idyllic way to live you can possibly imagine. The ideology behind it doesn't make much sense to me. It's idolizing this mother person and so on. I couldn't really get into that. It's not the only society in the world right now functioning in that way.
Well, most Aboriginal societies here functioned that way before we got here.
Yes.
So in effect, it probably lasted for at least 10,000 years. So in effect, there are other systems that could be adapted. Yeah. So that's not my argument, though. My argument is that we seem to be accepting the fact that the distribution system that we have in place now should be driven exactly so that 2 or 3% can live on the fat of the land and everybody else can barely find a house to sleep in.
Yeah. I just get back to maybe one of the basic themes of this course. If you distill it down to the essence is, are we passive victims of the future, or is it possible for us to shape the future? And I continue to feel if we are passive victims, then this course doesn't make any sense. Why would you take a course? You might as well just sit around and wait to see what happens. The course only makes sense if we can make it a more positive world in the future somehow by studying these things.
Yeah, well, I think one of the great things about this course is that we're trying to motivate young minds to seize the future and turn it into something better. And that is, I think, probably the underlying ethical reason for the course. It's certainly the underlying reason why I'm here. Anyway, thanks, guys. Unless you have other questions.
No, thanks for a great session.
This lady over here.
Yes, great.
You mentioned that our ethics are very influenced or has its foundations in religion, and I think I agree with that. A lot of our ethical thinkings come from religious teachings, but what I don't really understand is what you mean by development of religion. Because to me, I think in the Bible too, the most fundamental ethnical law is
No, I mean, let's take something that I think is probably related to your ancestry, and that's Confucianism. I mean, Confucian, or at least in Chinese area, Confucian values were not religious in the sense that we understand religious, but yet they were foundational to a civilization. And we've had different kind of religious models in the West, and they were foundational for the way in which, for example, European culture has developed, and those are also replicated in other areas, and so.
So you're saying ethics in terms of different cultures are different? So Chinese people have an ethical system that's different from European ethical system, but to me it's all the same.
No, I'm just saying the shape of that ethics and the principles of that ethics tracks the way the religious values have had an impact on a civilization and on a culture. So your ethical principles are somehow or other rooted in perceptions of values that maybe are not articulated, but they are most often articulated in a religious tradition. But these values and these norms that you find in these religious traditions undergo evolution. and they change. And so they don't stay the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.